He was a Viking who spent 15 years in exile. He became the commander of the elite Varangian Guard of the Byzantine Empire. He was king of Norway from 1046 until his death. He invaded England and lost his life in the Battle of Stamford Bridge. Here are a few facts you didn't know about Harald Sigurdsson Hardrada. Harald was born in Ringerike, Norway in the year 1015 AD to Esta Gudbrand's daughter and Sigmund Syr, a chieftain from the uplands of Norway. His family claims descent from the first king of Norway, Harald Fairhair, but this is not acceptable as historically correct by most modern historians. His half-brother Olaf was king of Norway, but he was forced into exile after he lost the throne to Danish king Knut the Great. 2 years after his exile, Olaf returned and together with then 15-year-old Harald fought side by side in the Battle of Stiklestad, but unfortunately they were defeated, with Olaf being killed in the battle and Harald being badly injured. With the help of some friends, the wounded Harald managed to escape Scandinavia and arrive in Kievan Rus, a loose federation of Slavic tribes under the reign of Rurik dynasty. He and his men were welcomed by Grand Prince Jaroslav the Wise with open arms, and Harald was even made captain of the Rus forces. In spite of his renown made in Kievan Rus, Harald probably grew restless with his limited options there. For an ambitious man like Harald, being the captain of Kievan Rus forces wasn't enough. By the time he turned 20, he made his way to Constantinople, the seat of the Byzantine Empire. There he managed to join the Varangian Guard, the elite bodyguards composed primarily of Norsemen in direct service of the Byzantine Emperor. The Varangians manned the Sworn, and they were the best paid troops in the empire. They also were allowed to plunder the royal palace when the emperor died. No wonder that young Harald employed himself there. As was in his nature, Harald quickly rose through the ranks and he managed to become the captain of the Varangian Guard. There he successfully fought against Arabs, and he even made his way to Jerusalem to oversee a peace treaty between the Byzantine Empire and Fatimid Caliphate in 1036 AD. However, by the end of 1041, the politics of the Byzantine Empire caught up with the young Viking, especially after the death of his friend, Emperor Michael IV. In the struggle between the new Emperor Michael V and the Empress Zoe, the young Norseman was imprisoned. The reasons for that are kind of mysterious. In any case, Harald managed to escape from prison and joined up with the Varangians, who were in an open revolt against Michael V for declaring himself the sole ruler of the empire. Once again fortune smiled upon him, with Michael V ultimately being defeated, blinded and castrated. Harald himself claimed that it was him who blinded the deposed emperor. Harald became extremely rich while serving in the Varangian Guard, and the money that he made allowed him to found his claim for the crown of Norway. He requested Empress Zoe to be allowed to return to Norway, but the empress refused. Rumors were that the empress was in love with Harald and didn't want him to ever leave. However, Harald escaped the empire by the Black Sea. He arrived back in Kievan Rus later in 1042. During his second stay there, Grand Prince Jaroslav was impressed with his wealth and allowed him to marry his daughter Elizabeth. Seeking to regain himself the kingdom lost by his half-brother Olaf, Harald began his journey to reclaim the throne in the early 1045. When he arrived in Sweden, his ship was unbalanced by its heavy load of gold. In Harald's absence, the throne of Norway and Denmark had been restored to Magnus the Good, an illegitimate son of Harald's half-brother Olaf. However, Harald decided to challenge his nephew, and thus he made an alliance with the Swedish king Anund Jakob and a claimant to the Danish throne, Svein Estridsson. Before any battles were fought, Magnus decided to make a compromise with Harald, allowing him to rule Norway while Magnus would still be Harald's overlord ruling from Denmark. As a result, the two kings made their separate courts and seldom met in person to discuss the matters of the realm. Their only recorded meetings nearly ended in physical clashes. However, in 1047 Magnus died without leaving an heir, and in his will Svein Estridsson inherited Denmark. Harald went on to claim the Danish throne, but quite unsuccessfully so. He only left his mark when he pillaged the burned Hedeby, at the time the most important trade center in Denmark. Hedeby never recovered from Harald's destruction and was completely abandoned in the following years. In the subsequent years, Harald traveled throughout his kingdom, accusing farmers for withholding taxes from him. He knew to act with brutality, and he often had people maimed or killed as a warning to those who disobeyed him. Hardrada's absolutism and consolidation of power earned him the nickname Hardrada, which means hard ruler. Coming to realization that he couldn't conquer Denmark, the 50-year-old Viking turned his attention to England, a resource-rich realm which the Vikings plundered and raided for more than 250 years. Edward the Confessor, the Saxon king of England, died in 1066 and was succeeded by Harald Gudmundsson. Finally, Hardrada's last expedition made its landing with 10,000 men at the river Tees in the year of 1066 AD, and he proceeded to pillage the land in typical Viking fashion. Most of the towns there went to surrender to the rampaging Vikings. By September, a 5,000-man army of Anglo-Saxons engaged the Norsemen at the Battle of Fulford. The battle was a decisive victory for the Norsemen, and the Anglo-Saxons retreated. This defeat forced King Harald Gudmundsson to take up arms and meet Harald in battle head-to-head. His army marched over 310 kilometers in just a week to surprise the Vikings at Stamford Bridge. Harald Hardrada's army was heavily beaten in the end, and the Norse king was killed by an arrow which struck him in his throat. And thus ended the incredible life of Harald Hardrada, with his death marking the end of the Viking Age. What do you think about our pick? Did we say something wrong? For more videos like this, subscribe to Foran Feast and or leave a comment saying what you would like to see next. Until next time, goodbye.